My name is Samantha Reed, and I am 32 years old. The mocking laughter around our Thanksgiving table cut deeper than anyone knew as my relatives belittled my cute little boutique. If only they could see the truth. While my mother Eleanor proudly discussed her executive position at Meridian Enterprises, she remained completely unaware that I secretly controlled Pinnacle Retail Group, now valued at billions. As everyone reached for pumpkin pie, her phone buzzed with a takeover notice bearing my name. Before I tell you what happened next, drop a like and subscribe to hear how I built an empire right under their noses. Ever since I was 8 years old, I dreamed of building something extraordinary. Not the typical childhood fantasies of becoming an astronaut or veterinarian. I wanted to create something that would change how people shopped. My earliest memory of this passion sparked during a shopping trip with my mother when I noticed how impersonal the experience felt. Why don't stores know what customers actually want? I asked, clutching my little notepad where I'd already begun sketching storefront designs. Throughout middle school, my entrepreneurial spirit only grew stronger. While other kids spent weekends at the mall hanging out, I observed traffic patterns, customer behaviors, and inventory turnover. By 14, I'd created detailed business models in color-coded binders that my parents initially found endearing. Mom would ruffle my hair and call me her little CEO whenever I presented my latest retail concept at the dinner table. My father, Gregory, an accountant by profession, taught me about profit margins and business expenses. Samantha has a gift, he'd tell relatives at family gatherings. She understands value in ways adults struggle to grasp. The support felt nurturing, a greenhouse where my ambitions could flourish without premature judgment. High school brought academic achievements alongside my business obsession. I graduated valedictorian while running a successful online jewelry store from my bedroom. The college applications practically wrote themselves. Northwestern University offered me a partial scholarship to their prestigious business program, where I thrived among like-minded innovators. Those 4 years shaped my vision into something concrete. My professors recognized something different in my approach to retail, not just selling products, but creating personalized experiences that customers couldn't find online. My senior thesis on experiential retail in the digital age won the department's highest honors and caught the attention of several major retailers who offered me internships. I accepted positions at 3 different companies, working nights and weekends to understand their models from the inside. Macy's taught me inventory management. A boutique consulting firm showed me the power of data analytics in predicting consumer behavior. A brief stint at Amazon revealed the weaknesses in purely digital retail models. Each experience became another piece in my growing blueprint. After graduation, I surprised everyone by turning down lucrative job offers. Instead, I used my modest savings of $30,000 to lease a tiny storefront in a Chicago strip mall. The space, barely 800 square feet, became the first location of what I called Curated, a boutique focused on personalized shopping experiences driven by sophisticated customer data. This is just temporary, my mother assured relatives at Christmas that year. She's getting it out of her system before joining a real company. Her words stung, but I smiled through them, knowing my concept had something special. My store combined the best elements of online shopping, personalization, convenience, data-driven inventory, with the irreplaceable human touch of in-person retail. That first year proved challenging but validating. I worked 16-hour days, personally assisting customers while developing proprietary software that tracked preferences beyond simple purchase history. My system analyzed browsing patterns, time spent with certain items, and even facial responses to different products. Privacy concerns necessitated transparency, so I created an opt-in program that offered discounts in exchange for this valuable data. 6 months in, the store reached profitability. Modest, but remarkable for a retail startup. By month 9, word of mouth had created a dedicated customer base who valued the uniquely curated selections awaiting them. Local business publications took notice, and a small feature in Chicago Business Monthly brought increased foot traffic. The pivotal meeting with Victoria Montgomery happened during month 11. She walked into my store, elegantly dressed in a tailored navy suit that immediately signaled her corporate background. I assumed she was another curious executive studying the quaint operation of a millennial entrepreneur. Instead, she spent 2 hours asking insightful questions about my expansion model and proprietary systems. "You've created something revolutionary," she said as I locked up that evening. "But it's trapped in 800 square feet of retail space." Victoria had built and sold 2 successful tech companies and was looking for her next project. Her expertise in scaling operations complemented my retail vision perfectly. After weeks of discussions over coffee and spreadsheets, she invested $500,000 for a 20% stake in my company. The partnership provided not just capital but mentorship from someone who had navigated the treacherous waters of rapid business expansion. With Victoria's investment, I secured leases for 2 additional locations in Chicago's affluent neighborhoods. Each store maintained the core concept while targeting slightly different demographics. The original store catered to young professionals, while the North Side location focused on established executives, and the Lincoln Park store specialized in family-oriented offerings. By the end of year 2, quarterly revenue had quadrupled, and our customer retention rate hit an unheard-of 92% in an industry where 30% was considered excellent. Local success created a springboard for regional expansion, and Victoria and I began scouting locations in neighboring states. Every indicator pointed toward extraordinary growth potential. Industry analysts who visited our stores left impressed by both the concept and execution. One retail consultant told me, "You've solved the biggest challenge facing brick-and-mortar retail today, giving customers a reason to leave their computers." The future looked limitless, fueled by innovation and validated by growing revenue. Little did I know that my greatest opposition wouldn't come from competitors, but from the people closest to me. The first hints of family skepticism emerged during Sunday dinners at my parents' suburban home. What began as gentle ribbing about my little shop experiment gradually transformed into something more cutting. My father remained supportive, but my mother's attitude shifted as her own career at Meridian Enterprises accelerated. Eleanor Reed had joined Meridian as a mid-level marketing executive when I was in high school. By the time I opened my first store, she had climbed to director of corporate communications. Her world revolved around quarterly reports, shareholder meetings, and corporate hierarchies. Success, in her paradigm, meant corner offices and company cars, tangible symbols my modest boutique couldn't provide. Meridian just acquired another subsidiary, she announced one Sunday, serving her signature roast chicken. The CEO mentioned me specifically in the all-hands meeting. "They're considering me for vice president next year." "That's wonderful, Mom," I replied sincerely. My second location broke even last month, 3 weeks ahead of projections. Her smile tightened almost imperceptibly. "That's nice, dear. More potatoes?" The conversation moved on to my cousin Heather's new position at a prestigious accounting firm. The dismissal stung, but I attributed it to my mother's excitement about her own accomplishments rather than disinterest in mine. Then came Thanksgiving, 3 years into my entrepreneurial journey. Our family tradition brought together the extended Reed clan at my grandmother Margaret's sprawling Victorian home in Evanston. Relatives arrived from across the Midwest, carrying casserole dishes and years of accumulated judgments. Cousin Heather, once my childhood confidant, had recently accepted a financial analyst position at Meridian, working under my mother's admiring gaze. As we arranged silverware before dinner, she asked about my boutique situation with unmistakable condescension. "Still playing shop owner?" she asked, adjusting a crystal water glass. "Mom mentioned you might finally be looking for positions with established companies." "Actually, we're opening our 4th location next month," I replied, maintaining my composure. "Revenue is up 63% year over year." "How quaint," she smiled, patting my hand. "But seriously, Eleanor mentioned some openings in Meridian's marketing department. Great benefits, stock options. You know, grown-up job stuff." Before I could respond, Uncle Maxwell entered the dining room, scotch in hand despite the early hour. A retired investment banker with an exaggerated sense of his own financial acumen, he'd appointed himself the family's economic oracle. "There's my retail maverick," he boomed, slinging an arm around my shoulders. "How's the little shop doing?" breaking even yet. We're well past that, Uncle Max. In fact. Listen, he interrupted, lowering his voice to a conspiratorial whisper that everyone could still hear. This economy's shifting. Retail's dying. Let me give you some free financial advice, valuable stuff, mind you. Take whatever modest success you've built and leverage it into a real corporate position. Eleanor could put in a word at Meridian. No shame in admitting the experiment has run its course. Throughout dinner, similar comments peppered the conversation. Aunt Patricia wondered aloud if playing store fulfilled my creative needs. Cousin Thomas, a pharmaceutical sales representative, explained retail's grim future to me as though I hadn't researched industry trends extensively. Each comment landed like a small paper cut, individually minor but cumulatively painful. Most surprising was my mother's participation. When Uncle Maxwell asked about my 5-year plan, suggesting it must involve getting a proper job eventually, Eleanor nodded along. We're hoping she'll consider her options soon, she said, as if I weren't sitting 3 chairs away. There's still time to build a real career. The betrayal crystallized something inside me. On the drive home, I made 2 decisions that would alter everything. First, I would stop sharing details about my business with family. Second, I would create deliberate separation between my personal and professional lives. They don't deserve to know, I told Victoria over coffee the following Monday. If they can't recognize success unless it fits their narrow definition, why keep trying to convince them? Victoria's experience proved invaluable here too. Companies compartmentalize information all the time, she noted. Consider this a need-to-know situation, and they don't need to know. This strategy coincided with a critical juncture in our business. A regional developer had approached us about anchoring a new luxury shopping district in downtown Chicago. The opportunity would quadruple our flagship store's square footage and place us alongside internationally recognized brands. The catch: it required $7 million in capital investment. Victoria and I spent weeks analyzing the opportunity. The numbers made sense, but required leveraging everything we'd built. I would need to live on a minimal salary for at least 18 months while we scaled operations. The decision would mean postponing personal luxuries that might have finally impressed my status-conscious family. Imagine their faces if you showed up to Christmas in a Tesla, Victoria joked during our deliberations. Is that worth compromising our growth strategy? The answer came easily. I chose the business over external validation, signing the expansion agreement on my 27th birthday. That decision marked the true beginning of my double life: successful entrepreneur to the business world, underachieving shopkeeper to my family. The emotional toll proved heavier than anticipated. Sunday dinners became exercises in selective truth-telling. I'd listen to my mother extol her corporate triumphs while minimizing my own accomplishments. Sometimes I'd catch my father watching me with a puzzled expression, sensing the omissions in my carefully edited updates. One Sunday, as I helped with dishes, he asked quietly, "Are you really doing okay financially, Samantha? Your mother worries." The question revealed how effectively I'd hidden my success. My company had just cleared its first $1 million in monthly revenue, yet my parents believed I might be struggling. Part of me wanted to show him our financial statements, to see pride replace concern in his eyes. Instead, I assured him things were stable enough and changed the subject. The pattern was set. At family gatherings, I became the slightly pitted relative who couldn't quite launch a real career. In boardrooms and business meetings, I transformed into the retail innovator revolutionizing the industry. The contrast created a compartmentalization that seeped into every aspect of my life. As Curated expanded beyond our initial locations, Victoria and I made a strategic decision that would facilitate my separate lives. We created Pinnacle Retail Group as a parent company, with each individual store operating under the Curated brand. This corporate structure allowed me to conduct business without my surname appearing prominently on corporate documents. Not technically hiding, but certainly not advertising my connection to the growing retail empire. Our expansion accelerated beyond even our ambitious projections. Within 18 months, we acquired leases for 10 additional locations across Illinois, Wisconsin, and Michigan. Each store maintained our core personalization concept while incorporating regional preferences identified through our increasingly sophisticated data analytics. The flagship store in Chicago's Magnificent Mile shopping district became our innovation laboratory. We installed cutting-edge technology that recognized returning customers, with their permission, and alerted personal shoppers to their arrival. Inventory systems automatically adjusted based on real-time purchasing patterns. The location quickly became a case study for retail industry publications, though I declined most interview requests, sending Victoria instead. Throughout this period of explosive growth, the annual Thanksgiving ritual continued, with increasing discomfort. Each year brought new variations on the same theme, condescension wrapped in family concern. The year we expanded to 15 stores, Uncle Maxwell cornered me before dinner. "Samantha, I've been looking into these retail incubator programs. They help small business owners transition their experience into corporate positions. I've put your name in with a buddy at Target headquarters." The following year, as we prepared to open our 20th location, Aunt Patricia commented loudly during dinner, "It's so admirable how Samantha sticks with her little boutique despite all the economic headwinds. Such determination." This while our company prepared for a private equity valuation exceeding $100 million. Most painful was the Thanksgiving after my mother's promotion to senior vice president at Meridian Enterprises. The family celebrated with champagne before dinner, toasting Eleanor's corporate achievement. During a lull in conversation, Cousin Heather turned to me with exaggerated sympathy. "Don't worry, Sam. Not everyone peaks in their 30s. Mom started her best career after 40, remember?" The comment drew knowing chuckles around the table. My mother, flushed with champagne and success, added, "Samantha just needs to recognize her talents could be better utilized in a structured environment." The conversation devolved into relatives suggesting various corporate positions that might rescue me from retail entrepreneurship. Meanwhile, Pinnacle Retail Group continued its meteoric rise far from my family's awareness. We launched an online platform that integrated seamlessly with our physical stores, allowing customers to begin their personalized shopping experience digitally before completing it in person. The innovation increased our average transaction value by 42%. Victoria orchestrated a Series B funding round that brought in $30 million from venture capital firms impressed by our consistent growth and profitability. The investment accelerated our expansion into new markets, with stores opening in upscale shopping districts across the country. As CEO, I relocated our corporate headquarters from our original modest office to a gleaming downtown Chicago building with our logo prominently displayed across the top 10 floors. Over 200 employees now supported operations across multiple states, with dedicated teams for technology development, customer experience, and data analytics. Our first major competitor acquisition came when a regional boutique chain with similar concepts but inferior execution faced bankruptcy. We purchased their 12 locations for pennies on the dollar, rebranded them under the curated banner, and implemented our systems. Within 6 months, these locations reversed their losses and contributed positively to our bottom line. Industry recognition arrived in the form of awards I couldn't acknowledge to my family. Retail Innovation of the Year. Fast Company's list of disruptive businesses. Forbes 30 Under 30. Each accolade remained carefully hidden from family conversations, creating an increasingly isolated personal existence. Dating became nearly impossible given the compartmentalization. Potential partners either knew me as the successful CEO, raising questions about my strained family relationships, or met me through personal connections and couldn't understand my apparent lack of career ambition. After several relationships collapsed under the weight of these contradictions, I retreated into my work. The isolation grew proportionally with Pinnacle's success. During one particularly difficult period, I worked 20 consecutive days without a genuine personal connection outside of business contexts. Victoria noticed my withdrawal and staged an intervention over dinner at her Lakeshore Drive apartment. "You've created a corporate juggernaut and a personal prison," she observed, pouring another glass of Cabernet. "Is proving them wrong worth sacrificing your authentic life?" I had no answer that satisfied either of us. The question lingered as we continued our expansion strategy, acquiring premium retail space in every major market nationwide. By my 31st birthday, Pinnacle Retail Group operated 67 stores across 23 states, employed over 800 people, and generated annual revenue exceeding $400 million. Last year's Thanksgiving represented the breaking point. After dinner, as relatives migrated to the living room for football and dessert, Uncle Maxwell cornered me near the liquor cabinet. "Samantha," he began, lowering his voice to a paternalistic rumble, "your parents would never say this, but they're worried sick about your financial future. No retirement planning, no investment strategy, just pouring everything into a retail concept that's—" He waved his hand dismissively, "charming but ultimately unsustainable. I've connected you with my financial advisor. Free consultation. Get your affairs in order before it's too late." That night, driving back to my penthouse apartment overlooking Lake Michigan, something fundamental shifted. The carefully maintained separation between my worlds suddenly felt not just painful, but absurd. Success, without acknowledgement, had become a hollow victory. Yet the prospect of revealing everything after years of secrecy seemed equally impossible. I had no idea that circumstances would soon force my hand in ways I couldn't have anticipated. January brought the news that would ultimately shatter my compartmentalized existence. A major private equity firm completed Pinnacle Retail Group's valuation ahead of a potential minority stake sale. Their conclusion sent shockwaves through the retail industry. $1.2 billion. Our growth trajectory, proprietary technology, and consistent profitability had created a valuation that exceeded even Victoria's optimistic projections. The morning after receiving this news, my mother called, her voice uncharacteristically strained. "Bad news at the office," she explained without preamble. "Meridian stock is tanking. The board called an emergency meeting yesterday." I gripped my phone tighter, immediately understanding the implications. Meridian Enterprises had been struggling with integration issues following several poorly executed acquisitions. Market analysts had been questioning their business model for quarters, but I never expected a crisis to develop so quickly. "How bad is it?" I asked, already opening my laptop to check financial news. "Bad enough that they're discussing potential buyers," Eleanor admitted. The resignation in her voice revealed more than her words. 30 years building my career, and now some corporate raider will probably dismantle everything we've created. The conversation continued with my mother sharing details about emergency executive sessions and contingency planning. Throughout, I maintained the facade of sympathetic daughter rather than revealing my immediate recognition of a strategic opportunity. After hanging up, I called Victoria. "Meridian's in play," I said without greeting. "They're looking for buyers." "Your mother's company?" Victoria clarified, immediately grasping the significance. "That's quite a coincidence." "Is it though?" I questioned. "Their acquisition strategy has been fundamentally flawed for years. They've been purchasing market share without strategic integration." The balance sheet problems were inevitable. We spent the next hour analyzing Meridian's public financial information. The company represented a potential strategic acquisition for Pinnacle's expanding operations. Their distribution infrastructure alone would accelerate our growth plans by approximately 18 months. The retail properties in their portfolio, while underperforming under current management, aligned perfectly with our expansion strategy. "You realize what this means," Victoria said eventually. "If we pursue this, your family situation becomes untenable." The observation hung between us, acknowledging the impossible position such an acquisition would create. Yet the business case was undeniable. After 3 days of intensive analysis with our executive team, I authorized our investment bankers to prepare an acquisition offer for Meridian Enterprises. The weeks that followed unfolded with intense activity hidden behind my usual veil of privacy. Meetings with financial institutions secured the necessary capital structure. Our legal team drafted acquisition documents with multiple contingency provisions. Valuation experts assessed Meridian's true worth beneath the struggling stock price. Throughout this period, Sunday dinners continued their painful pattern. My mother increasingly discussed Meridian's precarious position while I maintained my role as supportive daughter with limited business acumen. The cognitive dissonance reached absurd levels when she actually asked if I understood basic business terms she referenced. A hostile takeover means the acquisition happens without board approval, she explained unnecessarily during one dinner. But even a friendly acquisition would mean significant leadership changes. That sounds stressful, I replied, the understatement of my career. By late October, our acquisition strategy was fully developed. The offer would become public the week after Thanksgiving, giving me one last family gathering before my carefully constructed separate lives inevitably collapsed. As Thanksgiving approached, anxiety transformed my usually methodical approach to business. I reviewed the acquisition documents repeatedly, searching for alternatives that might somehow preserve the status quo. None existed. Success demanded disruption of comfortable patterns, in business and family alike. This year's Thanksgiving promised particular discomfort. Eleanor had been uncharacteristically vulnerable in recent calls, sharing fears about her professional future as Meridian's situation deteriorated. The knowledge that I controlled that future, without her awareness, created a moral complexity I struggled to reconcile. The gathering began like previous years, arriving at grandmother Margaret's house, exchanging superficial pleasantries, offering to help in the kitchen. Uncle Maxwell arrived with a new Mercedes. He made sure everyone noticed. Cousin Heather brought her husband Bradford, a junior executive at a pharmaceutical company she referenced approximately every 7 minutes in conversation. Dinner followed the established script. My father asked genuinely about my well-being. My mother mentioned Meridian's challenges, with careful corporate discretion. Relatives inquired about my shop, with thinly disguised condescension. I deflected with practiced vagueness. The mockery escalated during the main course when Aunt Patricia asked about my holiday inventory strategy. Before I could answer, Uncle Maxwell interrupted with unexpected vitriol. For God's sake, Patricia, stop encouraging this fantasy. Samantha's wasted 10 years playing shopkeeper while her peers built actual careers. Eleanor's company is facing bankruptcy while her daughter sells scarves to bored housewives. The table fell momentarily silent before Cousin Heather added, "It's not just scarves, Uncle Max. She sells those scented candles too, right, Samantha?" Laughter rippled around the table, missing only my father and grandmother. My mother, rather than defending me, offered a weak smile that cut deeper than the mockery. "Samantha knows we just want what's best for her future," she said, patting my hand with genuine condescension. The conversation mercifully shifted to Meridian's situation. Eleanor explained that employees expected an announcement about the company's future imminently, possibly even during the holiday weekend. "The board's been meeting with potential buyers," she explained, tension evident in her voice. "We're hoping for someone who understands our corporate culture rather than just dismantling everything for parts." As servers cleared dinner plates and brought dessert, phones around the table began buzzing simultaneously. Eleanor frowned, extracting her device from her purse. "That's strange. Company-wide email at 7 p.m. on Thanksgiving." I maintained a neutral expression while calculating the timing error by our communications team. The announcement had been scheduled for 9 p.m. after most family gatherings concluded. Someone had triggered the automated system early. Eleanor's expression transformed as she read the message, color draining from her face. Her eyes lifted from the phone to find mine, confusion giving way to disbelief as she processed the information. "Pinnacle Retail Group has acquired majority shareholding in Meridian Enterprises," she read aloud, voice trembling slightly. "Effective immediately." She stopped, swallowing visibly before continuing. "Effective immediately. Operations will be overseen by Pinnacle CEO Samantha Reed during the transition period." The silence that followed contained a decade of misunderstandings. Uncle Maxwell's fork clattered against china. Cousin Heather's wine glass froze midway to her lips. My father looked between my mother and me with growing comprehension. There must be some mistake. My mother finally managed, eyes never leaving mine. "Another Samantha Reed." I took a slow, deliberate breath before responding. "No mistake, ma'am. I am the CEO of Pinnacle Retail Group. We've just acquired Meridian Enterprises for $640 million. The stunned silence lasted approximately 12 seconds before erupting into chaotic crosstalk. Uncle Maxwell demanded explanations while examining the email on his own phone. Cousin Heather repeatedly murmured, "That's not possible," with diminishing conviction. My father alternated between confusion and dawning pride. Throughout the commotion, my mother remained unnaturally still, her expression cycling through disbelief, confusion, and something resembling betrayal. When she finally spoke, her voice carried the careful neutrality she typically reserved for difficult corporate negotiations. "Perhaps we should continue this discussion in private," she suggested, already rising from her chair. "Actually," I replied with newfound conviction, "I think we've had enough privacy. 10 years of it, in fact." The statement halted the chaotic reactions. I stood, suddenly aware of the power shift occurring in real time. For a decade, I'd played the role of underachieving daughter at this table. That role had abruptly, irrevocably ended. Pinnacle Retail Group currently operates 83 stores across 30 states. I began, voice steady. "We employ over 1,200 people and generated $620 million in revenue last year. The little boutique you've been mocking started as one store but now includes our flagship 8-story location on Michigan Avenue that serves over 10,000 customers weekly." Uncle Maxwell attempted to interrupt, but I continued without acknowledging him. "Our proprietary customer experience technology has revolutionized personalized retail. We've been profitable every quarter for 7 consecutive years. And yes, we just purchased Meridian Enterprises in a transaction that closed yesterday." Cousin Heather found her voice first. "But why didn't you tell anyone? Why let us think you were struggling with some small business?" The question deserved honesty. "Because from the moment I opened my first store, most of you treated my work as a hobby rather than a career. You dismissed my passion as temporary, my business as unsustainable. After years of condescension, I stopped sharing my success with people who couldn't recognize it." My mother finally broke her silence. "You deliberately deceived your family for years. You sat at this table listening to me worry about Meridian while knowing you planned to acquire it. The acquisition opportunity only emerged recently," I clarified. "But yes, I've maintained separate personal and professional lives because that felt easier than constantly defending my choices to people who should have supported them unconditionally." Uncle Maxwell, never comfortable outside the spotlight, attempted to recalibrate his position. "Well, obviously we always knew you had tremendous potential, Samantha. I've been saying for years that you have exceptional business instincts. The transparent revision of history might have angered me previously. Now it merely confirmed the correctness of my past decisions. Strange. I specifically remember you offering to connect me with financial advisors because you were worried sick about my lack of retirement planning last Thanksgiving." His face flushed crimson as other relatives turned toward him. The decades of authority he'd wielded at family gatherings evaporated in seconds. Without responding directly, he reached for the wine bottle with uncharacteristic humility. Cousin Heather approached next, her expression oscillating between embarrassment and calculation. "So, I guess this means you're technically my boss now? Since I work in Meridian's finance department." The question highlighted another complexity I hadn't fully considered. Dozens of relatives, connected through Eleanor, worked throughout Meridian's corporate structure. Their professional futures now depended on my business decisions. "Organizational changes will happen thoughtfully," I assured her, addressing the entire table. "This isn't about personal vendettas. It's about creating a stronger combined company." My father, who had remained silent throughout the revelations, finally approached. Unlike the others, his expression showed no calculation or revision, only genuine wonder and pride. "I always knew you were building something special," he said quietly. "I just never imagined the scale." His words unlocked something I'd suppressed through years of compartmentalization, the desire for parental recognition. The professional accomplishments, industry accolades, and financial success suddenly felt secondary to the simple acknowledgement in my father's eyes. The evening transitioned into something resembling a corporate briefing as relatives peppered me with questions about Pinnacle's operations. I answered selectively, maintaining appropriate confidentiality around sensitive business matters while revealing enough to establish my expertise beyond question. My mother remained uncharacteristically quiet, processing the dual revelations of her company's acquisition and her daughter's hidden success. As the gathering slowly dispersed, she requested a private conversation on the enclosed porch. "Why didn't you trust me enough to share this?" she asked once we were alone, vulnerability replacing her earlier shock. The question deserved careful consideration. It wasn't initially about trust. When I started, I was genuinely building something small that grew beyond my early projections. By the time Pinnacle became significant, you and others had established such a clear pattern of dismissing my work that revealing the truth seemed impossible without seeming either boastful or vindictive. She absorbed this with visible discomfort. And the Meridian acquisition? Was that revenge for years of misunderstanding? It was business, I replied honestly. Meridian's distribution infrastructure and real estate holdings complement our expansion strategy perfectly. The synergies are obvious to anyone analyzing both companies objectively. A week after Thanksgiving, I invited key family members to tour Pinnacle's corporate headquarters. The visit served multiple purposes, demonstrating the legitimate scale of operations, establishing clear professional boundaries, and beginning the process of integrating family relationships with my authentic professional identity. Their reactions to the gleaming offices, staffed by hundreds of employees clearly respectful of my leadership, completed the reversal of our previous dynamic. Uncle Maxwell, witnessing my executive team's deference and the sophisticated operation humming around us, finally abandoned any pretense of financial superiority. Cousin Heather, seeing her Meridian position within the larger corporate structure, adopted a newly professional demeanor lacking any trace of previous condescension. The media coverage following the acquisition announcement brought additional validation. Industry publications detailed the retail wunderkind who had built Pinnacle from a single boutique to a billion-dollar enterprise. Financial analysts praised the strategic synergies between the companies. Several profiles specifically noted the unusual privacy I'd maintained throughout Pinnacle's growth, though none discovered the family dynamic underlying that choice. Most meaningful was a private conversation with my mother 3 weeks after the acquisition. She requested a meeting at my office rather than during family dinner, signaling her recognition of our new professional relationship. "I owe you an apology," she began, perched uncomfortably on the edge of a chair across from my desk. "Not just for underestimating your business acumen, but for failing to support your vision when you needed it most." The admission represented significant personal growth from a woman who rarely acknowledged mistakes. Why was it so difficult to see value in what I was building? I asked, genuinely curious after years of wondering. "Because it didn't fit the template of success I understood," she admitted. "Corporate advancement followed clear metrics and hierarchies I recognized. What you created seemed foreign, without the familiar markers of achievement I'd been conditioned to respect." The conversation marked the beginning of reconciliation, though the relationship had fundamentally transformed. We would need to build something new on the ruins of old assumptions, a process requiring patience and mutual vulnerability. The months following the acquisition brought necessary but difficult conversations with relatives who had previously dismissed my work. Each required establishing new boundaries based on mutual respect rather than familial obligation. Some adjusted more gracefully than others to the shifted dynamic. Uncle Maxwell's attempt to discuss potential investment opportunities received polite but firm redirection. Aunt Patricia's sudden interest in my business expertise warranted similar boundaries. Most transparent were distant relatives suddenly discovering our special connection while seeking employment within the expanded company. These interactions reinforced the wisdom of my previous privacy while validating the necessity of finally ending it. The temporary discomfort of revelation had purchased authentic relationships moving forward, an investment already yielding returns beyond financial measurement. 6 months after the Thanksgiving revelation, Both Pinnacle Retail Group and my family relationships had evolved into something I scarcely could have imagined a year earlier. The corporate integration progressed smoothly, with Meridian's operations complementing Pinnacle's expansion strategy even better than our models predicted. More surprising was the transformation in family dynamics as relatives adjusted to the reality of my professional identity. Sunday dinners resumed, with dramatically different conversational patterns. Gone were the condescending inquiries about my little shop. Instead, relatives listened attentively when I discussed business challenges, occasionally offering genuinely useful perspectives. The authenticity refreshed relationships grown stale through years of performative interactions. Most significant was the evolution in my relationship with Eleanor. After careful consideration, I created a specialized role leveraging her communications expertise across the expanded organization. The position honored her professional capabilities while establishing appropriate reporting structures that maintained corporate governance. "I never imagined working for my daughter," she admitted during our weekly strategy lunch. "But I'm learning more about modern retail communications in months than I did in years at Meridian." Her willingness to adapt impressed everyone, particularly given the status she'd previously attached to her executive title. She approached the role with unexpected humility, asking questions and absorbing new methodologies without defensiveness. The transformation revealed character depths I'd underestimated through years of strained interaction. The professional world finally acknowledged what I'd built with formal recognition. Retail Innovation Awards celebrated our customer experience technology. Industry publications featured our expansion strategy as a case study in sustainable growth. The culmination came with my inclusion on the cover of Forbes, the accompanying profile detailing both Pinnacle's rise and the unusual circumstances of its private development. "The Stealth Billionaire," read the headline, capturing both the financial milestone and the deliberate privacy that had characterized my journey. The article required discussing the family dynamic I'd previously kept separate from my professional identity. I maintained privacy partly from strategic choice and partly from personal necessity, I explained to the journalist. Building something revolutionary requires protection from early criticism, whether from competitors or from well-meaning people applying conventional wisdom to unconventional concepts. The public profile generated thousands of messages from young entrepreneurs facing similar challenges. Their stories of family skepticism, gender-based dismissal, and the struggle for early validation reflected my own experience with remarkable consistency. Responding to this unexpected community became a personal priority alongside corporate responsibilities. The professional achievements, while satisfying, paled against the personal growth occurring simultaneously. Years of compartmentalization had created emotional patterns requiring deliberate unlearning. A breakthrough came unexpectedly during a charity gala where I met Michael Donovan, an architectural engineer specializing in sustainable commercial spaces. Our conversation began professionally. His firm had designed several shopping centers housing Pinnacle stores, but quickly revealed mutual interests beyond business. Unlike previous relationships strained by my compartmentalized lives, this connection started with complete transparency about both my professional position and family history. "That must have been an interesting Thanksgiving," he observed after hearing a condensed version of the revelation. His understated response, free from either intimidation or excessive fascination with my success, signaled emotional intelligence I'd found rare in potential partners. The relationship developed organically over subsequent months, neither accelerated by professional convenience nor hindered by hidden truths. For the first time, I experienced the possibility of partnership without performance or concealment, a freedom I hadn't recognized as missing until experiencing its presence. Victoria, whose mentorship had guided me through building Pinnacle, observed the changes with characteristic insight during our weekly strategy session. "You've finally integrated your lives," she noted. "The Samantha in boardrooms matches the Samantha at family dinners, matches the Samantha dating Michael. That integration creates power beyond anything compartmentalization allowed." Her observation captured something fundamental. The energy previously dedicated to maintaining separate identities now fueled both professional innovation and personal growth. Integration created capacity for presence previously impossible amid constant calculation about appropriate disclosures. The approaching holiday season brought consideration of new traditions. After discussion with immediate family, I offered to host Thanksgiving at my lakefront home, ending decades of gathering at grandmother Margaret's house. The proposal met surprising resistance from unexpected sources. "Your grandmother's house has history," my mother argued. The familiar setting might ease continuing adjustments to changed family dynamics. The concern revealed lingering discomfort with our transformed relationship. Hosting Thanksgiving would further cement the shifted power dynamic between us, something Eleanor still processed with understandable complexity. After consideration, I deferred the hosting change to the following year, recognizing the wisdom in gradual rather than abrupt transitions. As summer turned to autumn, professional publications requested interviews about my journey from single boutique to retail empire. The profile in Business Insider particularly resonated, focusing not on financial metrics, but on the psychological aspects of building while being underestimated. The continuous dismissal of my business created unexpected advantages, I explained to the interviewer. Operating without scrutiny allowed experimentation that might have faced premature criticism under greater visibility. Being underestimated created space for revolutionary rather than incremental innovation. The article generated significant response, particularly from women entrepreneurs facing similar dynamics. Their messages described the peculiar challenge of pursuing vision amid dismissal from those who support matters most emotionally. The commonality of this experience inspired a formal mentoring initiative connecting established business leaders with emerging entrepreneurs navigating family skepticism. As the anniversary of the revelation approached, I reflected on the complex journey from compartmentalization to integration. The professional achievements, expanded retail footprint, technological innovation, market valuation provided measurable validation. More meaningful was the personal growth measured in authentic relationships, emotional presence, and congruence between internal identity and external presentation. The question Victoria had asked years earlier finally had an answer. No, proving others wrong wasn't worth sacrificing authentic life. But the journey through that sacrifice had created something neither compartmentalization nor premature exposure could have produced. A fully integrated identity encompassing both extraordinary achievement and genuine connection. 1 year after the Thanksgiving revelation, we gathered again around Grandmother Margaret's dining table. The physical setting remained unchanged, same Victorian architecture, same heritage china, same traditional menu. Yet everything else had transformed. Conversations flowed with newfound authenticity. Questions about my business came from genuine interest rather than veiled judgment. Most significantly, family members shared their own vulnerabilities rather than projecting certainty about life's correct paths. The anniversary prompted natural reflection on the journey. After dinner, my mother and I stepped onto the enclosed porch that had hosted our first honest conversation following the revelation. The parallel wasn't lost on either of us. A year ago, I knew my daughter as someone who couldn't quite find professional footing, Eleanor observed, gazing through the windows at gathering twilight. Now we're building a business partnership I never imagined possible. The statement acknowledged her transformation as much as mine. In the months following the acquisition, Eleanor had embraced her role leading communications for our expanded retail division. Her corporate experience complemented my entrepreneurial approach, creating synergies that benefited both the business and our relationship. You've brought valuable perspective to our expansion strategy, I acknowledged. The executive team specifically mentioned your contribution to the Seattle market launch. Her genuine smile reflected newfound comfort with contribution valued on merit rather than title or hierarchy. The partnership embodied possibilities neither of us could have envisioned during years of misalignment. Beyond family reconciliation, the year brought opportunities to leverage success for broader impact. The Pinnacle Foundation launched with $50 million dedicated to supporting entrepreneurs facing systemic barriers. The initiative particularly focused on women building businesses amid familial or social skepticism, providing both capital and mentorship. Success without purpose becomes hollow, I explained at the foundation's launch event. Building something revolutionary matters most when it creates pathways for others facing similar obstacles. The mentoring program paired established business leaders with promising entrepreneurs whose concepts faced resistance from traditional funding sources. My personal involvement included monthly sessions with 5 women building innovative retail concepts. Their determination despite dismissal from family, friends, and potential investors mirrored my earlier journey with uncomfortable precision. Everyone told me retail is dying, shared Zoe Chin, developing technology integrating augmented reality with in-store experiences. My parents call my business the expensive hobby, while pushing me toward corporate law positions. Her experience echoed countless conversations since revealing my journey publicly. The pattern transcended geography, demographics, and specific business models. Visionaries routinely face skepticism from those emotionally closest to them. Supporting these entrepreneurs through that challenging terrain became as meaningful as Pinnacle's continued expansion. Reconciliation with key family members progressed unevenly but steadily throughout the year. Uncle Maxwell, whose financial advice had once represented the most cutting dismissal, approached our relationship with unexpected humility. "I completely misread what you were building," he acknowledged during a private conversation at his 75th birthday celebration. Seeing only what fit my narrow definition of success rather than recognizing innovation happening before my eyes. The admission represented significant growth from someone whose identity centered on financial acumen. More meaningful than the acknowledgement was his subsequent behavior, asking genuine questions about retail innovation and occasionally offering perspective from his banking background without presumption or condescension. Cousin Heather navigated the most complex transition, simultaneously processing our personal history and her professional position within the reorganized company. Initial awkwardness gradually yielded to productive collaboration as her financial expertise contributed meaningfully to expansion planning. "Working with you rather than competing against you feels surprisingly natural," she observed during a strategy session. "Perhaps we were always meant to combine talents rather than compare them." The observation captured something essential about family relationships broadly: the potential for collaboration rather than competition when individual strengths receive recognition and respect. This principle extended beyond immediate family to reshape my approach to business partnerships, investor relationships, and team building. The new Thanksgiving tradition emerged organically rather than through declaration. While Grandmother Margaret's house hosted this year's gathering, planning for next year's celebration at my lakefront home proceeded with enthusiastic family participation. The transition symbolized acceptance of both my professional identity and the shifted family dynamic it necessitated. Public speaking opportunities allowed sharing the journey's lessons with broader audiences. A TED Talk titled "The Power of Being Underestimated" explored the counterintuitive advantages of building without premature scrutiny or expectation. The presentation resonated particularly with young entrepreneurs navigating skepticism from trusted voices in their lives. Being underestimated creates space for revolutionary thinking, I explained from the circular red carpet. When nobody expects extraordinary outcomes, experimentation flourishes without pressure to deliver conventional results. The talk's conclusion addressed the personal cost of proving others wrong. Building something revolutionary while hiding its existence exacts a price paid in authentic connection. The question becomes whether temporary sacrifice of transparency serves necessary protection of nascent vision or merely perpetuates patterns of seeking external validation. This reflection on motivation represented the year's most significant personal growth. Examining why I maintained secrecy revealed complex truth, legitimate strategic advantage intertwined with lingering desire for dramatic vindication. Recognizing this complexity allowed integration of the valid strategic elements while releasing the emotional components that no longer served either personal or professional development. Finding balance between work and personal life remained an ongoing practice rather than achieved destination. The relationship with Michael progressed with intentional boundaries between professional obligations and personal connection. Weekend trips to Michigan's wine country. Cooking classes taken together. Small traditions building foundation for potential shared future. You've created extraordinary professional success, he observed during a sunset sail on Lake Michigan. The question becomes what personal fulfillment looks like alongside that achievement. The question illuminated territory still requiring exploration, defining success beyond business metrics while integrating rather than compartmentalizing different aspects of identity. The journey ahead involved learning to value personal connection with the same intensity previously devoted to professional achievement. The profound lesson emerging from this year of integration crystallized during a mentoring session with young entrepreneurs. When asked what single insight I would share from my journey, the answer came with unexpected clarity. Being underestimated can become your greatest advantage, but only when you transcend the need to prove others wrong. Build with revolutionary vision protected from premature criticism, but recognize when that protection becomes a prison rather than a greenhouse. Success measured only in proving doubters wrong ultimately proves hollow compared to success measured in authentic impact and connection. This understanding continues guiding both personal and professional decisions as Pinnacle expands its footprint while I simultaneously expand capacity for genuine presence in relationships. The integration of previously compartmentalized identities created something neither could achieve independently, a life of impact without sacrifice of connection. What about you? Have you ever been underestimated in pursuing something important to you? How did you respond to that skepticism? Share your experience in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please like and subscribe for more authentic journeys of overcoming obstacles and finding success against the odds. Thank you for joining me today, and remember, sometimes being underestimated is exactly the space you need to build something revolutionary. I never thought my own brother would be the one to break my heart. But there I was, standing outside a wedding tent that cost more than my first car, holding a paper plate while the rest of my family dined under crystal chandeliers. We all agreed, "You're not in the wedding party," Travis said with an apologetic shrug that didn't reach his eyes. His new father-in-law's laughter cut deeper than any knife. "Real family eats under roofs," he sneered. That was the moment I decided financial ghosts don't bring gifts. Before I get into the whole messy saga, I'd love to know where you're watching from today. Drop your location in the comments below and hit that subscribe button if you enjoy stories about family drama and sweet, sweet revenge. Trust me, you'll want to stick around to hear how 38 voicemails and 111 messages later, my brother learned exactly what family loyalty means. My name is Natalie Rivera, and at 35, I've built a successful career as a financial advisor. I drive a sensible car, own a modest condo in the city, and have enough in my retirement accounts to sleep soundly at night. But my life wasn't always this stable. When our parents divorced when Travis was just 7 and I was 16, our family fractured in ways that left permanent scars. My mother, Catherine, moved on quickly, remarrying within a year and starting what she called her real life. My father, Richard, buried himself in work, leaving me to essentially raise my little brother. I became Travis's surrogate mother, making his lunches, helping with homework, attending his parent-teacher conferences when neither of our actual parents bothered to show up. When it came time for college, I had just started my career. I postponed my own master's degree to help pay for Travis's education at a prestigious private university. "It's an investment in our family," I told myself as I wrote check after check for his tuition, housing, textbooks, and the spring break trips he couldn't bear to miss while his friends jetted off to Cancun. After graduation, I helped Travis with the down payment on his first house, a charming bungalow that needed work but had potential, as the realtor kept emphasizing. I spent weekends helping him paint, install new flooring, and update the kitchen. Those weekends were some of my favorite memories with him. Pizza on the floor, paint in our hair, laughing about childhood memories. Everything changed when Travis met Vanessa Harrington at the country club where he'd recently secured a membership, another expense I had quietly subsidized, believing it would help him network for his fledgling marketing career. Vanessa came from old money, the kind that doesn't talk about having it because everyone already knows. Her father, Walter Harrington owned a chain of luxury car dealerships across 3 states and made sure everyone knew exactly how self-made he was, despite inheriting the business from his father. The first time Travis brought Vanessa to dinner at my place, I noticed the way her eyes scanned my modest condo, lingering on the IKEA furniture I'd assembled myself. Quaint, she'd said with a thin smile, and I watched my brother flinch slightly, as though her assessment reflected on him too. Over the 18 months they dated, I watched Travis transform. His casual button-downs were replaced with tailored shirts bearing tiny embroidered logos that cost more than my entire outfit. He traded his practical sedan for a German luxury car that strained his budget. He began using words like summer as a verb and dropping names of exclusive resorts I'd never heard of. When Travis called to announce their engagement, I was genuinely happy for him. "I'd love to help with the wedding," I offered immediately, knowing how expensive these events could be. "That's so sweet, Nat," he'd replied. "We'll definitely keep that in mind." In the early days of wedding planning, I was included in some of the conversations. Travis and Vanessa came over one Sunday afternoon with wedding magazines and a preliminary guest list. We drank coffee and circled potential venues, with Vanessa dismissing most of my suggestions as a bit basic. "What about the role you'd like me to play?" I asked tentatively. "I'm happy to help however you need me." "Oh, we haven't figured out the wedding party yet," Vanessa had said quickly. "It's all still coming together." Travis nodded. "Yeah, still early days." But it wasn't early days for long. Gradually, the updates became less frequent. Travis canceled our standing monthly dinners 3 times in a row. When I called to check in on wedding plans, he'd respond with vague assurances that everything was coming along great before rushing off the phone. Then, just 1 week before the wedding, I received a formal invitation in the mail. Thick cream cardstock embossed with gold foil announced the union of Travis Rivera and Vanessa Harrington at Sterling Vineyards, an exclusive venue that I knew charged 5 figures just for the space. There was no mention of the rehearsal dinner, no indication of my role in the ceremony, no personal note from my brother. I called Travis immediately. "Just got the invitation," I said when he answered. "It's beautiful." "Yeah. Vanessa's mom worked with a designer in New York," he replied. I noticed there wasn't any information about the rehearsal or my role in the ceremony. A long pause followed. "Listen, Nat, we decided to keep the wedding party really small. Just a couple people on each side." "Oh," I said, trying to mask my hurt. "That makes sense. But you'll be there for the whole thing, of course. Wouldn't be the same without you." Despite the disappointment, I was determined to be supportive. I arranged time off work, bought a new dress in a dusty blue that I knew would complement the wedding colors without matching the bridal party, and prepared a generous gift. I transferred $8,200 into the Venmo account I still shared with Travis from his college days, money I had been saving for a kitchen renovation, but decided my brother's wedding was more important. The morning of the wedding dawned clear and perfect, as though even the weather was conspiring to create Vanessa's dream day. I spent extra time on my hair and makeup, determined to look my best even if I wasn't standing beside my brother. As I drove to Sterling Vineyards, I pushed down the anxiety that had been building all week. Today wasn't about me. It was about Travis, and I would plaster on a smile if it killed me. Sterling Vineyards was even more breathtaking than the photos on their website had suggested. Rows of meticulously maintained grapevines stretched across rolling hills, their leaves catching the late afternoon sunlight. The main building was a Spanish-style villa with terracotta roof tiles and climbing roses framing massive wooden doors. In the distance, I could see a white tent set up for the reception, gossamer fabric billowing gently in the breeze. The parking lot was filled with luxury vehicles, gleaming BMWs, Mercedes, and even a few Bentleys that I assumed belonged to Vanessa's family. I felt suddenly self-conscious about my practical Subaru as I pulled into one of the few remaining spaces near the back of the lot. I smoothed the skirt of my dress as I walked toward the venue. The dusty blue silk fell just below my knees, elegant, but not overstated. I'd paired it with nude heels and pearl earrings that had belonged to our grandmother, something old, something borrowed, though I wasn't the bride. My hair was swept into a low chignon, and I carried a small clutch containing the envelope with details of my Venmo gift. As I approached the venue's main entrance, I spotted several of our cousins gathered in a small group. Melissa, who I'd babysat countless times, was now a poised young woman of 23. She wore a formal dress in sage green that I immediately recognized as bridesmaid attire. Beside her stood our cousins Jessica and Amber, similarly dressed. "Natalie," Melissa called out, then immediately dropped her gaze when the others turned to look at me. The group quickly dispersed, each suddenly remembering urgent business elsewhere. Confused, I continued into the venue's courtyard, where guests were mingling before the ceremony. I scanned the crowd for Travis, but didn't see him among the clusters of well-dressed attendees. What I did see were more sage green dresses and charcoal gray suits than could possibly constitute a small wedding party. "Natalie." My mother's voice came from behind me, cool and controlled as always. I turned to find both my parents standing together, an unusual sight since their bitter divorce nearly 20 years ago. My mother, Catherine, looked elegant in a taupe dress, with an elaborate fascinator perched on her perfectly highlighted hair. My father, Richard, stood awkwardly beside her in a dark suit that looked new but slightly too tight around the collar. "Mom, Dad," I greeted them, leaning in to kiss my mother's cheek. She turned slightly so my lips barely brushed her skin. "You look nice," she said, her eyes flickering over my carefully chosen outfit. I thought the invitation specified formal attire. "This is formal," I replied, trying to keep my tone light. "Well, I suppose it's adequate," she sniffed. My father gave me an apologetic smile. "You look beautiful, kiddo," he said, earning a sharp glance from my mother. "Have you seen Travis?" I asked. I wanted to wish him luck before the ceremony. "He's with the groomsmen," my mother replied. "Very busy, I imagine. Better not to disturb him." "I'm his sister," I said. "I'm sure he'd want to see me." My father's eyes darted nervously between us. "He's over by the fountain with the other guys," he said quickly. I'm sure a quick hello would be fine. Ignoring my mother's disapproving look, I thanked my father and made my way toward the ornate fountain at the center of the courtyard. Sure enough, Travis stood among a group of 8 men, all dressed in identical charcoal gray suits with sage green ties and pocket squares. 8 groomsmen. So much for a small wedding party. Travis spotted me approaching and froze momentarily before excusing himself from the group. He looked handsome in his groom's attire, though his smile seemed forced as he reached me. "Nat, you made it," he said, giving me a quick, awkward hug. "Of course I made it. I wouldn't miss my only brother's wedding," I replied, studying his face. "You look great, Travis." "Really happy." "Thanks, yeah, it's been crazy, but everything's coming together." His eyes kept darting back to the groomsmen, as though afraid to be away from them too long. "I see you have quite the wedding party," I observed. 8 groomsmen. Travis had the decency to look embarrassed. "Yeah, well, you know. Vanessa has a lot of friends, and then there's her brothers, and some of my college buddies. And our cousins," I added. I saw Melissa, Jessica, and Amber in bridesmaid dresses. "Right, yeah. Vanessa really connected with them at Thanksgiving. And her sister Brielle is the maid of honor, of course." I nodded, waiting for some explanation about my absence from this extensive wedding party, but Travis just shifted uncomfortably from one foot to another. "So where should I sit for the ceremony?" I asked finally. "Front row with family." Actually, Travis began, but was interrupted by the arrival of a tall, silver-haired man with a deep tan and an expensive watch glinting on his wrist. "Travis, my boy, we need you for photos before the ceremony," the man boomed, clapping a heavy hand on my brother's shoulder. His eyes landed on me with obvious assessment. "And who might this be?" "Walter, this is my sister, Natalie," Travis said, his voice taking on a deferential tone I'd never heard before. "Natalie, this is Walter Harrington, Vanessa's father." "Ah, the sister," Walter said, as though confirming a rumor. He extended a manicured hand. "Pleasure to meet you. Travis has told us, well, something about you." I shook his hand, noting the firmness of his grip. "Likewise. Congratulations on your daughter's big day." Walter looked me up and down with unconcealed judgment. "Financial advisor, aren't you? With one of those small firms downtown." "Lancaster and Associates. We manage over $300 million in assets," I replied evenly. "Charming," Walter said, clearly unimpressed. "Is that a Subaru I spotted you arriving in?" Practical choice. Before I could respond, a coordinator in a headset approached. "We're ready to begin seating guests for the ceremony," she announced. Guests began moving toward the ceremony area, where rows of white chairs faced an elaborate floral arch. The tent I'd spotted earlier was even more magnificent up close, a massive structure with clear panels allowing views of the vineyard while providing shelter. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling, and elaborate floral arrangements adorned each table. I moved to join the procession of guests, but an usher in a charcoal suit stepped in front of me. "Excuse me, miss. Family seating is by escort only." "I'm the groom's sister," I explained. The usher looked confused, consulting his list. "I don't have you marked for family seating." "Let me check with." "It's fine, Alex." Travis's voice came from behind me. "I've got this." The usher nodded and moved away to direct other guests. I turned to my brother, expecting him to lead me to the front row. Instead, he stood there holding a paper plate with a few appetizers on it. "What's going on, Travis?" I asked, a knot forming in my stomach. Travis couldn't meet my eyes. He stared at the paper plate in his hands as though it contained the script for what he needed to say. "Look, Nat," he began, his voice low. "There's been some arrangements made for the seating and everything." "Arrangements," I repeated. "Vanessa's family is very traditional, very particular about how these things are done." I waited, watching my brother struggle to find words that wouldn't sound as cruel as they were. "We all agreed," Travis finally said, looking up with an expression I couldn't quite read. "You're not in the wedding party." He thrust the paper plate toward me, like an offering to soften the blow. I stared at the plate: 3 stuffed mushrooms, a bruschetta round, and a soggy-looking pastry, unable to process what was happening. "You all agreed?" I finally managed. Walter Harrington appeared beside Travis, his arm draped across my brother's shoulders in a possessive gesture. "It's nothing personal," he said with a smile that suggested it was entirely personal. "The ceremony space is limited, and we had to prioritize immediate family." "I am immediate family," I said, my voice sounding distant to my own ears. "I'm his only sister." "Blood isn't always the strongest bond," Walter replied smoothly. "Vanessa's friends have been like sisters to her and now to Travis. And of course, his new Harrington family takes precedence today." Travis still hadn't looked at me directly. "There's a nice spot by the oak tree where you can, watch from." Walter chuckled, the sound like gravel underfoot. "Real family eats under roofs," he said, gesturing to the magnificent tent where guests were now being seated. "But we saved you some appetizers." The humiliation burned through me like acid. Nearby guests pretended not to watch the scene unfolding, their curious eyes darting in our direction, before quickly looking away. I recognized some of them: Travis's college friends who had eaten countless meals at my table, relatives who had attended family gatherings in my home when no one else would host. My hands began to shake, and I could feel heat rushing to my face. Tears threatened, but I refused to let them fall in front of Walter's smug expression or Travis's cowardly avoidance. In that moment, memory after memory flashed through my mind. 16-year-old me making Travis's Halloween costume by hand when our mother was too busy with her new husband. My name as the co-signer on Travis's first apartment lease because his credit wasn't established. The promotion I'd turned down because it required relocation, and Travis still needed me nearby during his senior year. The vacation fund I'd emptied to help Travis when his car broke down the month before graduation. The countless times I'd been there when no one else was. And now I stood holding a paper plate of leftover appetizers, deemed not family enough to sit inside the tent. My free hand moved to my purse, fingers finding the envelope containing the details of my Venmo gift. I pulled it out slowly, feeling a strange calm replace the shock and hurt. "You know what, Travis?" I said quietly. "You're right. I'm not family today." Travis finally looked at me, confusion crossing his features. "What do you mean?" "Of course you're family. This is just about the seating and—" "No," I interrupted, my voice steady. "This is about choices. And you've made yours." I took a step back, still holding the envelope. Walter's eyes fixed on it, his expression shifting from smugness to sudden interest. "Is that your gift?" he asked, nodding toward the envelope. "We have a table set up inside for financial ghosts don't bring gifts," I said, slipping the envelope back into my purse. "Enjoy your wedding, Travis. I hope it was worth it." I turned to walk away, but Travis grabbed my arm. "Nat, wait, please. Don't leave. We still want you to be part of the day." "Part of what part?" I asked. "The part where I stand outside and watch through the tent flap? Or the part where I eat appetizers off a paper plate while everyone else has the 5-course dinner I know you've planned?" "You're making a scene," Travis hissed, looking around nervously. "No, you made the scene when you decided your only sister wasn't good enough for your wedding party, but our cousins who you see once a year were perfect fits." Walter stepped forward, his demeanor suddenly conciliatory. "Now, Natalie, let's not be hasty. Family disagreements happen, but today is about celebration. Why don't you come inside? We can find you a seat." His abrupt change in tone told me everything I needed to know. The envelope in my purse had transformed me from an embarrassing relation to a potential source of wedding gifts. "I'm leaving," I said firmly, removing Travis's hand from my arm. "Congratulations on your new family." I walked away with as much dignity as I could muster, keeping my spine straight and my pace measured until I rounded the corner of the main building. Only then did I allow my shoulders to slump and my breath to come in ragged gasps. Finding a secluded bench partially hidden by a large topiary, I sank down and placed the untouched paper plate beside me. My hands were still trembling, adrenaline coursing through my body. How had it come to this? The question echoed in my mind as I stared unseeing at the manicured grounds of Sterling Vineyards. I had given Travis everything: time, money, emotional support, and in return, he had given me a paper plate and permission to watch his wedding from a distance. The financial aspect suddenly hit me full force. Over the years, I had poured thousands into Travis's life. $78,000 for his college tuition and expenses, $12,000 toward his car when he graduated, $35,000 for the down payment on his house. Countless smaller amounts for bills when he was a little short this month. The country club membership initiation fee of $15,000 that I had covered as a career investment. And most recently, the $8,200 I had transferred to our shared Venmo account for his wedding gift. The account we had set up during his freshman year of college so I could easily send him money for books and emergencies. The account I had never removed myself from because there was always another financial need around the corner. I pulled out my phone and opened the Venmo app, navigating to the shared account. There it was, $8,200 sitting in the balance, money I had transferred just yesterday in anticipation of giving it as a wedding gift. My finger hovered over the screen. Would taking it back make me as bad as them? Was I being petty? Vindictive? But then Walter's sneering face appeared in my mind. Real family eats under roofs. And Travis, unable to even look me in the eye while handing me that pathetic paper plate. "Natalie." Travis's voice broke through my thoughts. I looked up to see him hurrying toward me, panic evident on his face. "You can't leave." I stood quickly, phone still in hand. "Watch me." Please, he begged, reaching me and grabbing both my arms. It's my wedding day. I need you here. You need me or you need my gift? I asked pointedly. His eyes flickered with guilt. That's not fair. Of course I want you here. You're my sister. Your sister who wasn't good enough to stand with you or even sit with the family. It's complicated, Travis said, running a hand through his carefully styled hair. Vanessa's family has expectations, traditions. They're covering most of the wedding costs and… So you sold me out for a fancy wedding? The hurt in my voice was unmistakable. No, it's not like that. It's just politics. Family politics. Before I could respond, Vanessa appeared, her white gown billowing around her as she strode toward us. Her face was a mask of barely controlled anger. Travis, what are you doing? The photographer is waiting, and you're out here. Her voice trailed off as she noticed me. Oh! Hello, Natalie. Congratulations, I said flatly. Thank you, she replied with equal coolness. Travis, we really need to get back. Natalie's thinking of leaving, Travis told her, his voice tight with anxiety. Vanessa's expression shifted instantly, a practiced smile appearing on her face. Oh, you can't leave. It's our special day. We want all our family here. Do you? I asked. Because it seems like I'm family when it's convenient and not family when it interferes with appearances. That's not true, Vanessa insisted, though her eyes darted nervously toward the tent where guests were still being seated. There was just limited space in the wedding party, and tough decisions had to be made. 8 bridesmaids and 8 groomsmen doesn't sound like limited space to me. Walter appeared behind his daughter, his face flushed from either exertion or anger. What's the holdup here? The ceremony starts in 15 minutes. Natalie's upset about the seating arrangements, Vanessa explained quickly. Walter's eyes narrowed, then he too adopted a conciliatory tone. Listen, Natalie, perhaps there's been a misunderstanding. Family is important to the Harringtons. We value loyalty and togetherness. Is that why you said real family eats under roofs while handing me a paper plate? I asked. Walter had the grace to look embarrassed. A poor joke, poorly timed. I apologize if it offended you. I noted the careful if in his apology, not acknowledging that his words were objectively offensive, only that I might have taken offense. Why don't we all take a breath? Walter continued, glancing at his watch. Natalie, I understand you brought a gift? His eyes dropped to my purse where the envelope had disappeared. And there it was, the real reason for the sudden attempt at reconciliation. They had spotted the envelope and assumed it contained a check. In their minds, I had transformed from an embarrassing relation to a potential contributor to the wedding coffers. I'm reconsidering my gift, I said honestly. Panic flashed across Travis's face. Nat, come on. Don't be like that. Like what? Like someone who expects to be treated with basic respect by her own brother. Please, Travis lowered his voice. I'm counting on your gift for some of the vendor payments. We can talk about this tomorrow, but today, just, please stay and act like everything's fine. The admission stunned me. He had been counting on my money to pay vendors at his own wedding? Without even telling me? I need to freshen up, I said suddenly, needing space to think. Give me a few minutes. Relief washed over Travis's face. Of course. Take your time. The ceremony doesn't start for 15 minutes. I'll be there, I promised, not specifying where there might be. Travis nodded eagerly and allowed Vanessa to pull him back toward the wedding tent. Walter lingered a moment longer, his eyes calculating. Family disagreements happen, he said smoothly. But at the end of the day, blood is thicker than water. With a final appraising look, he turned and followed his daughter. I watched them go, then walked quickly toward the parking lot. In my car, I sat with the air conditioning running, staring at the Venmo app still open on my phone. Travis had admitted he was counting on my gift to pay vendors for a wedding where I wasn't even considered family enough to sit inside the tent. My finger hovered over the transfer button. Was I really going to do this? Was I really going to take back my gift and leave my brother's wedding? The image of Travis handing me that paper plate flashed again in my mind. We all agreed, you're not in the wedding party. All of them sitting around, discussing me, deciding I wasn't worthy of standing beside my own brother on his wedding day. Decision made. I pressed the button and transferred the entire $8,200 back to my personal account. A mix of emotions washed over me: relief, guilt, satisfaction, grief. I had never denied Travis anything he asked for, until today. As I put my car in reverse, my phone began to ring. Travis's face appeared on the screen. I silenced it and drove away from Sterling Vineyards, away from the paper plate and the tent with its crystal chandeliers, away from the brother who had chosen status over the sister who had given him everything. By the time I arrived home that evening, exhaustion had settled deep in my bones. The kind of tiredness that comes not just from physical exertion, but from emotional devastation. I kicked off my heels in the entryway of my condo and padded to the kitchen in bare feet, not bothering to turn on lights as I went. My phone, which I had silenced after the third call from Travis, now showed 15 missed calls and dozens of text messages. I placed it on the kitchen counter and stared at the notification screen as it lit up with yet another incoming call. Travis again. I declined the call and opened the text messages instead. Travis, 4:17 p.m., where are you? Ceremony starting soon. Travis, 4:35 p.m., Natalie, answer your phone. Travis, 4:42 p.m., you can't just leave like this. It's my wedding day. Travis, 5:03 p.m., the caterer is asking for the final payment. I told them it was coming. Please call me. Travis, 5:15 p.m., did you take the money out of Venmo? Travis, 5:16 p.m. Natalie, this isn't funny. Travis, 5:23 p.m., Walter is furious. The venue is threatening to stop service if we don't pay the balance. The messages continued in this vein, growing increasingly desperate. I closed the text app, unable to read anymore. Opening a bottle of Merlot I'd been saving for a special occasion, I poured a generous glass and took a long sip. A knock at my door startled me. For a moment, I considered ignoring it, but the knocking persisted. I peered through the peephole to see Monica Peterson, my best friend since college, holding a paper bag that smelled suspiciously like takeout from our favorite Thai restaurant. I opened the door and Monica took one look at my face before pulling me into a tight hug. You look like hell, she said when she finally released me. Thanks. Just the compliment a girl needs after being rejected by her own family. Monica pushed past me into the apartment, heading straight for the kitchen. I brought drunken noodles and spring rolls. And I see you've already started on the wine. Good call. She busied herself finding plates and forks while I sank onto a bar stool at my kitchen island. How did you know? I asked. Travis called me, Monica admitted, not meeting my eyes. He was frantic, said you'd left the wedding and weren't answering your phone. He thought you might be with me. And what did you tell him? I told him I hadn't heard from you, but would check on you. She placed a plate of noodles in front of me. I didn't say I'd report back. I smiled weakly. Thanks. So, Monica said, opening her own container of pad thai, want to tell me what happened? The whole story poured out of me, the last-minute invitation, the paper plate, Walter's sneering comment about real family, and finally, my decision to take back the money and leave. Wait, Monica interrupted, her fork suspended midair. You took back $8,000 from his Venmo? I nodded, shame and vindication warring within me. I did. To my surprise, Monica burst out laughing. That's the most badass thing I've ever heard. Financial ghosts don't bring gifts. Natalie, you're my hero. I don't feel like a hero, I admitted. I feel like a bitter, vindictive person. Monica's expression sobered. Let me ask you something. When you were putting yourself through school while paying for Travis's education, did he ever once offer to take smaller loans so it wouldn't be such a burden on you? I shook my head. When you postponed your master's degree to help him with his house down payment, did he suggest you prioritize your education first? No, but when you signed as guarantor on his car loan, did he make every payment on time, or did you have to cover some months? I stared at my noodles. I covered some months. Some. Monica raised an eyebrow. Most, I admitted. But he was just starting his career, and you were just starting yours when you paid for his college, Monica finished. Nat, you've been carrying Travis financially and emotionally for your entire adult life. You sacrificed your own opportunities to give him his. And how did he repay you? By serving you appetizers on a paper plate outside his wedding tent. Put so bluntly, it was hard to argue with her assessment. Our mom says I'm being selfish and dramatic. Catherine also abandoned both her children emotionally after the divorce, so forgive me if I don't consider her the authority on healthy family dynamics. I took another sip of wine. I just keep thinking about all those people at the wedding who saw what happened. All those relatives who know I raised Travis when our parents checked out. They watched him exclude me and said nothing. Because they're cowards, Monica said firmly. Just like Travis. It was easier to go along with Vanessa's family's wishes than to stand up for what's right. A fresh wave of emotion hit me, and I felt tears begin to fall. I've always been there for him, Monica. Always. Since he was 7 years old and crying because Mom didn't come to his school play. I was the one who showed up. Every single time. Monica came around the island and wrapped her arms around me. I know, sweetie. You've been the only real parent he's had. Then why wasn't I good enough to stand beside him today? The question broke from me in a sob. Because Travis is weak, Monica said simply. He spent his life taking the path of least resistance. It was easier to take your help than to stand on his own. And today, it was easier to please Vanessa's family than to honor the sister who has always been there for him. As I cried on Monica's shoulder, the full weight of years of one-sided giving crashed down on me. I had never set boundaries with Travis because I felt responsible for him. I had been 16 when our family fell apart, old enough to understand that none of it was Travis's fault. He had been a child, innocent, and confused. So I had stepped in, determined that he wouldn't suffer for our parents' failures. But somewhere along the way, giving to Travis had become my identity. His needs always came first. His dreams took priority. His happiness was paramount. I had shrunk my own life to expand his. What do I do now? I asked finally, wiping my eyes. Monica handed me a napkin. Now you set boundaries. Real ones. You stop being Travis's personal ATM and emotional support animal. You focus on your own life for once. And tonight? He's still calling. Tonight you turn off your phone and get some sleep. Tomorrow will be soon enough to deal with the fallout. I nodded, suddenly exhausted beyond words. Will you stay? I don't want to be alone. Already planned on it, Monica said, refilling our wine glasses. I brought overnight stuff in the car, and ice cream for later. For the first time since receiving that wedding invitation a week ago, I felt a small measure of peace. Monica helped me change into comfortable clothes, and we spent the evening watching mindless reality TV, the sound of my phone's notifications eventually fading as I followed her advice and turned it off completely. That night, as I drifted off to sleep on my couch with Monica snoring softly in the armchair beside me, I made a promise to myself. No more putting Travis's needs before my own. No more sacrificing my dreams for his. Tomorrow would bring a reckoning, but tonight, I would rest. Morning arrived with sunlight streaming through the blinds I'd forgotten to close. For a blissful moment, I existed in the space between sleep and wakefulness, untouched by yesterday's events. Then reality crashed back, and I remembered everything. The paper plate, Walter's sneering comment, my dramatic exit, the Venmo transfer. Monica was already awake, the smell of coffee drifting from my kitchen. I sat up slowly, running a hand through my tangled hair. Sleeping Beauty awakens, Monica said, bringing me a steaming mug. How are you feeling? Like I burned down my family tree and now have to live with the ashes, I replied, accepting the coffee gratefully. Poetic, but dramatic. Monica sat beside me, her own mug cradled in her hands. Ready to face the music? I took a fortifying sip of coffee. As I'll ever be. Monica handed me my phone, which she had apparently plugged into charge overnight. Brace yourself. It's not pretty. I pressed the power button and waited as the device came to life. Notifications immediately began flooding the screen. 38 voicemails. 111 text messages. 27 missed calls. Dozens of app notifications, including multiple Venmo requests from Travis. Holy shit, I breathed. Told you, Monica said grimly. Want me to screen them for you? I shook my head. No, I should do this myself. I started with the voicemails, putting the phone on speaker so Monica could hear too. Travis, 4:52 p.m., Natalie, where are you? The ceremony's about to start, and you're not here. Call me back. Travis, 5:20 p.m., I can't believe you just left. And what happened to the money in Venmo? The caterer is waiting for payment. Call me now. Travis, 5:45 p.m., this is so messed up, Nat. It's my wedding day and you're pulling this childish stunt because you didn't get to be a bridesmaid? Grow up. The messages grew increasingly desperate as the evening progressed. Travis, 7:13 p.m. Vanessa's dad had to put the rest of the reception on his credit card. He's furious. You've embarrassed me in front of my new family. How could you do this to me? Travis, 8:38 p.m., please Nat. Just call me back. We can work this out. Travis, 10:22 p.m., I've been trying to call you all night. The reception was a disaster. Half the vendors threatened to walk out when their final payments didn't come through. Vanessa won't stop crying. Her parents think I'm some kind of con artist. Please call me. There were also messages from other family members. Catherine, 6:05 p.m., Natalie Elizabeth Rivera, what do you think you're doing? Your brother is beside himself. This behavior is absolutely unacceptable. Call me immediately. Melissa, 7:22 p.m., hey Natalie, it's your cousin Melissa. Just checking if you're okay? Travis seems really upset, and I heard something about you leaving the wedding. Let me know if you need anything. And Patricia, 8:40 p.m. Natalie, it's Aunt Patty. I saw what happened with the seating arrangement today. That wasn't right, how they treated you. Just wanted you to know not everyone agrees with how things were handled. Love you, sweetie. But the most surprising message came from Walter Harrington himself. Walter, 11:15 p.m., Natalie, this is Walter Harrington. Your behavior today was absolutely reprehensible. Leaving your brother's wedding and withdrawing funds that were promised for vendor payments? I've half a mind to pursue legal action for the embarrassment and financial damage you've caused. I expect to hear from you first thing tomorrow morning with a plan to make this right. By the time we reached the end of the voicemails, I was shaking, partly with anger, partly with a creeping sense of doubt. Had I gone too far? Don't you dare second-guess yourself, Monica said, reading my expression perfectly. They treated you like garbage, and Travis admitted he was counting on your money without even telling you. But what if I ruined his wedding? You didn't ruin anything. His choices ruined his wedding. All you did was refuse to bail him out of those choices. I was about to respond when another knock sounded at my door. Monica and I exchanged glances. If that's Travis, I'm not ready, I whispered. Monica peeked through the peephole, then turned to me with surprise. It's your dad. I hadn't expected that. My father, Richard, had always been the more distant parent, burying himself in work after the divorce. We maintained a polite but somewhat detached relationship, exchanging birthday cards and occasional lunches, but rarely discussing anything of substance. I nodded to Monica, who opened the door. Richard stood there looking uncomfortable in the same suit from yesterday, though considerably more rumpled. He held a bakery bag in one hand. Natalie, he said, his voice rough. Can I come in? I gestured him inside. suddenly conscious of my disheveled appearance. "Dad, this is a surprise." "I brought bagels," he said awkwardly, holding up the bag. "I remember you like the everything ones with scallion cream cheese." The fact that he remembered this small detail about me was more touching than it should have been. "Thanks. This is my friend Monica." "We've met," Richard said, nodding at Monica. "At your college graduation, I think." "Good memory," Monica said, taking the bakery bag from him. "I'll make more coffee." She disappeared into the kitchen, leaving me alone with my father. He sat on the edge of my armchair, looking out of place in my living room. So I began, unsure what to say. "Did Travis send you?" Richard shook his head. "No one sent me. I came because I wanted to make sure you were okay." "I'm fine," I said automatically. "No, you're not." My father's directness surprised me. "What happened yesterday was wrong, Natalie. The way they treated you." I should have said something. The admission hung in the air between us. "Why didn't you?" I finally asked. Richard sighed heavily, running a hand over his thinning hair. "Because I'm a coward. I've always been a coward when it comes to standing up to your mother or making waves. After the divorce, it was easier to step back than to fight for my place in your lives." "Travis needed you," I said, old hurts rising to the surface. "I needed you." "I know," he acknowledged. "And I failed you both. But you stepped up, Natalie. You became the parent neither of us was brave enough to be." His words caught me off guard. I had never expected this level of self-awareness from my father. "They seated me at the back of the tent," Richard continued. "Did you know that? Not with family, not near the wedding party. At a table with some of Vanessa's distant relatives who kept asking if I was the caterer. Despite everything, I felt a laugh bubble up." "Seriously?" "Seriously. Catherine was at the family table with Walter and his wife. Apparently, she and Martha Harrington have become great friends through the wedding planning. They're planning a cruise together next month." The absurdity of it all struck me suddenly. My mother, who had abandoned her children emotionally after the divorce, was now being embraced by Travis's new family, while I, who had sacrificed everything for him, was literally left out in the cold. "Did Travis ever tell you I was helping pay for the wedding?" I asked. Richard's expression darkened. "No, but I'm not surprised. You've always been his safety net, Natalie. We all know it, even if we don't talk about it." I took back my gift, I admitted. $8,000 I had put in our shared Venmo account. I transferred it back to my account and left. Instead of the judgment I had expected, my father nodded slowly. "Good for you. Good for me?" "Dad, Travis left me a dozen voicemails saying the reception was a disaster because vendors didn't get paid. Walter Harrington is threatening legal action." "Walter Harrington is full of hot air," Richard said dismissively. "He has the money to cover those bills 10 times over. He's just angry that his perfect wedding spectacle had a few hiccups." As though summoned by our discussion, my phone rang with Vanessa's name on the screen. I showed it to my father. "Don't answer," he advised. "Nothing good will come from talking to her while emotions are still raw." I declined the call, but seconds later, a voicemail notification appeared. Curiosity got the better of me, and I played it on speaker. Vanessa's voice was tight with barely controlled rage. "Natalie, how dare you? How dare you embarrass us like this? Do you have any idea what you've done?" The caterer almost walked out in the middle of dinner. "The photographer is withholding our photos until the balance is paid." My father had to scramble to cover thousands in unexpected costs. "Travis told me you were difficult, but this is beyond anything I could have imagined. You've ruined the most important day of our lives because of your petty jealousy. You will be hearing from our lawyer." The message ended, and silence filled my living room. "Difficult?" I repeated, the word feeling like a slap. "That's how Travis describes me to her? Difficult?" Richard's expression was grim. "You deserve better, Natalie. From all of us, but especially from Travis." Monica returned with coffee and distributed the bagels. "So what's the game plan?" she asked, settling beside me on the couch. I don't know, I admitted. Part of me wants to call Travis and apologize for the timing, even if I don't regret taking my money back. Another part wants to change my phone number and move to another state. For what it's worth, Richard said carefully, I think you should take some time before making any decisions. Let the dust settle. Your father's right, Monica agreed. Let Travis stew for a bit. He needs to understand that actions have consequences. I nodded, taking a bite of my bagel. As I chewed, a text message arrived from my mother. Catherine, 9:17 a.m. We need to talk. Meet me at Café Laurent at noon. Don't make me come find you. I showed the message to the others. You don't have to go, Richard said immediately. I know, I replied. But I think I should. Get it over with. Want me to come with you? Monica offered. I considered it, then shook my head. No, this is something I need to do alone. But thank you. As my father and Monica helped me clean up from breakfast, I felt a strange sense of calm settling over me. For the first time in my adult life, I had put myself first. My dignity, my self-respect, my financial well-being. It didn't feel as selfish as I had feared. It felt necessary. I decided to respond to just one message before meeting my mother, a simple text to my cousin Melissa. I'm okay. Thank you for checking on me. We'll talk soon. It wasn't much, but it was a start. Café Laurent was busy with the Sunday brunch crowd when I arrived at precisely noon. I spotted my mother immediately. Catherine Rivera-Whitman sat ramrod straight at a corner table, her highlighted bob perfectly in place, designer sunglasses perched on top of her head despite the cloudy day. I steeled myself and approached the table. Hello, Mom. Catherine looked up, her lips pursed in disapproval. You're on time. At least that's something. I slid into the seat across from her, declining to take the bait. A server appeared immediately. Just a black coffee, please, I requested before Catherine could order for me, one of her controlling habits I'd grown to detest. Once the server departed, my mother wasted no time. Do you have any idea what you've done? I believe I declined to be treated like a second-class citizen at my brother's wedding, I replied evenly. You embarrassed the entire family, Catherine hissed, leaning forward. Vanessa's parents had to cover thousands in vendor payments at the last minute. The cake wasn't fully paid for. The band threatened to leave. And this is my problem because... Catherine's eyes widened at my calm defiance. Because Travis was counting on your gift to cover those expenses. Funny, he never mentioned that to me. He just mentioned that we all agreed I wasn't good enough to be in the wedding party or even sit with family. Don't be so dramatic, Natalie. The wedding party was Vanessa's decision, and they needed to balance numbers. 8 bridesmaids and 8 groomsmen, I pointed out. Including cousins I see once a year at most. That doesn't sound like balancing numbers to me. The server returned with my coffee, momentarily pausing our conversation. After she left, Catherine's tone softened slightly. Look, I understand you had your feelings hurt. But to leave in the middle of the wedding and withdraw money Travis was counting on? That was childish and vindictive. I took a sip of my coffee, buying time to control my response. Did you know I wasn't in the wedding party before yesterday? Catherine's slight hesitation told me everything. We discussed it when the planning began, she admitted. Vanessa felt it would be awkward. Awkward. I repeated. Why? Well, you know. Catherine gestured vaguely. You're older, you're single, you have your career. You don't exactly fit with the aesthetic they were going for. Each word was a fresh cut. The aesthetic, I echoed. I see. And when exactly were you planning to tell me I didn't meet the wedding's aesthetic requirements? Because I found out yesterday when Travis handed me a paper plate and told me to eat outside. Catherine had the grace to look uncomfortable. That was unfortunate. Walter sometimes speaks without thinking. And Travis? Does he speak without thinking too? Or does he just not think about me at all anymore? Travis has been under enormous pressure, Catherine defended. The Harringtons have expectations. Vanessa comes from a certain social circle. A circle I'm not good enough for, I finished. Despite the fact that I paid for Travis's education, helped with his house down payment, and have been supporting him financially for years. And that's exactly the problem, Catherine exclaimed, then immediately lowered her voice when nearby diners glanced our way. You've always held that over Travis's head. Your financial support. As if being his sister entitles you to control his life. I stared at her, genuinely stunned. Control his life? When have I ever controlled his life? I've done nothing but support his choices, even when they were terrible ones. Like Vanessa? Catherine asked shrewdly. I didn't deny it. She's changed him, Mom. And not for the better. She's elevated him, Catherine countered. The Harringtons are introducing him to people who can actually help his career, not just subsidize it. The implication stung. So I'm good enough to pay his bills, but not good enough to stand beside him at his wedding. Natalie, Catherine sighed, as though explaining to a child, sometimes we have to accept that relationships evolve. Travis is building his own life now with Vanessa. That naturally means some relationships will become less central. Less central? Mom, he wouldn't even let me sit with the family. Because you've been smothering him. Catherine's composure finally cracked. Always checking in, always offering money, always reminding him of what you've sacrificed. Did it ever occur to you that maybe Travis wanted some independence? Independence. I laughed bitterly. Is that what you call it when he asks me to cover his car payment because he spent his money on a weekend trip to Aspen with Vanessa? Or when he borrowed $3,000 last Christmas for her gift that he never paid back? Catherine waved a dismissive hand. That's different. That's just family helping family. Exactly. Family. The thing I apparently wasn't yesterday. A tense silence fell between us. Catherine took a delicate sip of her tea before speaking again, her voice carefully modulated. Travis and Vanessa are in financial trouble, she admitted finally. The wedding was more expensive than they planned. Walter promised to help but pulled back at the last minute, saying Travis needed to man up and handle it himself. So Travis decided I would cover the difference without even telling me? He was embarrassed, Catherine said, as if that explained everything. And he knew you would help. You always do. Not anymore, I said firmly. That chapter is closed. Catherine's eyes narrowed. What does that mean? It means I'm done being Travis's personal ATM. I'm done sacrificing my needs for his. I'm done being the family ghost, present when bills need paying but invisible when recognition or respect is being distributed. You're being petty. No, Mom. For the first time in my adult life, I'm being self-respecting. Catherine leaned forward, her expression suddenly calculating. Travis and Vanessa need help getting back on their feet after this wedding fiasco. Just a small loan to cover the remaining vendor payments and the first few months of married life. $10,000 should do it. I nearly choked on my coffee. Are you serious right now? After everything that happened yesterday, you're here to ask me for more money. It's not for me, Catherine clarified, as though that made it better. It's for your brother. Your only sibling. The answer is no. Natalie, be reasonable. Family supports family. Funny how that principle only works in one direction in this family. Catherine's expression hardened. I didn't want to have to say this, but if you don't help Travis now, you can forget about being part of this family going forward. No holidays, no birthdays, no family gatherings. You'll be completely cut off. The ultimatum hung in the air between us. A year ago, even a week ago, it would have devastated me. Now, it felt almost liberating. Mom, I said quietly, I was cut off yesterday when Travis handed me that paper plate. You're just making official what was already clear. You can't mean that. I do. I reached for my purse and placed a $10 bill on the table for my coffee. I love Travis. I always will. But I'm done enabling him, and I'm done letting this family treat me like an ATM with no feelings. I stood to leave, but Catherine grabbed my wrist. Natalie, don't do this. Don't throw away your family over one bad day. It wasn't just one day, Mom. It was a pattern. Yesterday was just when I finally saw it clearly. I gently removed her hand from my wrist and walked away, ignoring her calling my name. Outside the cafe, I took a deep breath of fresh air, feeling lighter than I had in years. As I walked to my car, my phone rang. Travis's name appeared on the screen. After a moment's hesitation, I declined the call. I wasn't ready to talk to him yet, but soon I would be. And when that conversation happened, it would be on my terms, not his. 1 week later, I sat in another cafe, this one closer to my office, watching the door. I'd finally agreed to meet with Travis after days of ignored calls and messages. He'd sounded different on the phone when I finally answered, subdued, even humble. No demands, no accusations, just a simple request to talk. Travis arrived 5 minutes early, another change from his usual 15 minutes late. He looked tired, the designer clothes replaced by a simple button-down and jeans. He spotted me and walked over, hesitating before taking the seat across from me. "Thanks for meeting me," he said quietly. I nodded but said nothing, waiting for him to continue. "Natalie, I don't even know where to start." Travis ran a hand through his hair, a nervous gesture from childhood. "I messed up. Badly." "Yes, you did. The wedding was a disaster after you left," he admitted. "The vendors started demanding their final payments, and when I couldn't produce them, things got ugly. The photographers stopped taking pictures. The band played 1 hour instead of 3. The caterer removed half the dinner options from the menu. Despite everything, I felt a twinge of sympathy. "I'm sorry your day was ruined, Travis." "I truly am." "No," he said firmly, meeting my eyes. "Don't apologize. That's not why I'm telling you this. I'm telling you because I want you to know what happened after. After the wedding fell apart, I looked to Walter for help. He'd promised to take care of anything that came up. But when I approached him about covering the vendor balances, he refused. I couldn't hide my surprise. Travis nodded grimly. Said it was my responsibility to manage my finances, that his daughter deserved a husband who could handle his business affairs. Then he gave me a lecture about fiscal responsibility in front of the entire wedding party. That must have been humiliating, I acknowledged. It was. But it was also clarifying. Travis looked down at his hands. I realized in that moment that I'd been played. Walter never intended to help with those costs. He knew I was counting on your gift and deliberately engineered the situation with the seating and the wedding party to create conflict. Why would he do that? Because Vanessa told him how often you've helped me financially. He saw you as competition for influence over me. Travis's voice was laced with shame. And I let him manipulate me because I was so desperate to impress him, to feel like I belonged in their world. I took a sip of my latte, processing his words. And Vanessa? Where does she stand in all this? Travis's expression grew pained. That's another thing I've realized this week. Vanessa doesn't love me, at least not the real me. She loves the version of me that her father approved of, the Travis who drives the right car, wears the right clothes, belongs to the right clubs. When everything fell apart at the wedding, when her father publicly humiliated me, she sided with him. I'm sorry, I said and meant it. Don't be. It forced me to see what I've been blind to for 2 years. Travis reached across the table, not quite touching my hand, but close. And it forced me to see how I've treated the one person who has always been there for me. Tears pricked at my eyes, but I blinked them back. It hurt, Travis. Being excluded from your wedding party was painful enough, but being treated like I wasn't even family? Being handed a paper plate and told to eat outside? That broke my heart. I know, Travis whispered, his own eyes glistening. And there's no excuse. None. I got caught up in what the R49s wanted, in appearing good enough for them, and I betrayed the most important relationship in my life. Why didn't you just tell me you needed help with the wedding costs? I asked. You know I would have helped if you'd asked directly. Because I was ashamed, Travis admitted. I'd already borrowed so much from you over the years. And then Walter started making comments about how a real man wouldn't keep taking handouts from his sister. How I needed to stand on my own. It got in my head. So instead of asking, you just expected the money would be there? Travis nodded miserably. I've been taking you for granted for so long that it didn't even occur to me you might say no. Or that you might be hurt enough by my actions to withdraw your support. We sat in silence for a moment, the weight of years of imbalanced giving between us. What happens now? I finally asked. With you and Vanessa? We're separating, Travis said simply. The wedding night was spent in separate rooms. She's staying with her parents while I figure things out. I'm sorry, I said again. I'm not really. It was a mistake, Nat. A mistake driven by insecurity and the desire to belong to a world that was never real in the first place. I studied my brother's face, seeing for the first time in years the boy I had raised, not the stranger he had become. And what about us? Where do we go from here? Travis took a deep breath. That's entirely up to you. I wouldn't blame you if you wanted nothing to do with me after how I treated you. But I'm hoping we can rebuild. Differently this time. Differently how? No more financial dependence, Travis said firmly. I've taken a second job to pay off the wedding debts and build some savings. I'm selling the luxury car and going back to something more practical. I've canceled the country club membership. I raised an eyebrow. Cold turkey on the Harrington lifestyle? A small smile touched Travis's lips. It wasn't making me happy anyway. Just making me broke and anxious. And Mom? Have you talked to her? Travis's expression darkened. She's still pushing me to reconcile with Vanessa. Says I'm throwing away a golden opportunity by walking away from the Harrington connection. Sounds like Mom. I told her I was meeting you today and she said. Travis hesitated. What? What did she say? She said not to come crawling back to you for money. That I should have more pride. I laughed, surprising both of us. Classic Catherine. I'm not here for money, Nat, Travis said earnestly. I swear. I'm here because you're my sister, and I love you, and I treated you terribly. I want to make it right if that's even possible. I considered his words, searching his face for sincerity. It won't be easy, I said finally. Trust is easier to break than to rebuild. I know, but I'm willing to try for however long it takes. I nodded slowly. Okay, we can try. Relief washed over Travis's features. Thank you, he whispered. But things have to be different, I continued. Real boundaries. Real independence for you. No more enabling from me. Agreed, Travis said quickly. Completely agreed. We spent the next hour talking, really talking, in a way we hadn't in years. About his job prospects, about my career goals, about the family dynamics that had shaped us both. When we finally parted, there was a tentative peace between us, fragile but real. 3 months later, Travis and I met again, this time for coffee near his new apartment, a modest one-bedroom he could actually afford on his own. In the intervening months, he had followed through on his promises. He got a second job bartending on weekends. He sold the luxury car and bought a used Honda. He initiated the divorce proceedings with Vanessa, who had already begun dating the son of one of her father's business associates. How's the new financial advisor working out? I asked as we settled at a corner table. After our first meeting, I had referred Travis to a colleague who specialized in debt management and financial recovery. It was the only assistance I had offered, a referral, not money. Angela's great, Travis said. Tough but fair. We've got a plan to be debt-free in 18 months if I stick to the budget. And are you sticking to it? Travis smiled. Haven't eaten out in 2 months except for coffee with you. Packed lunch every day. Cancelled all the streaming services except one. It's actually not as hard as I thought it would be. I'm proud of you, I said and meant it. Thanks. But I'm just doing what you've been doing all along, being responsible, living within my means. Better late than never, I teased gently. Travis's expression grew serious. Nat, I don't think I ever properly thanked you. Not just for all the financial help over the years, but for everything. For being there when mom and dad weren't. For showing up to every school event, every game. For believing in me even when I didn't deserve it. You deserved it, I said softly. You were a kid who needed support. You still deserved better than what happened at the wedding, but you always deserved to be supported and loved. Well, I'm trying to be worthy of that support now. Our conversation turned to other topics. My recent promotion at work, his tentative steps back into dating, a funny story about our father's new hobby of birdwatching. It felt natural, equal. No longer a conversation between benefactor and dependent, but between siblings who respected each other. As for me, the past 3 months had brought changes of my own. I had finally scheduled classes to complete my long-deferred master's degree. I had started dating Julian, a kind architect I met at a friend's dinner party. And I had established clear boundaries with my mother, who was slowly coming to terms with the new family dynamic whether she liked it or not. When Travis and I parted that day, I felt a sense of closure on the painful wedding incident. The paper plate, the cruel words, the financial manipulation, they had been a catalyst for necessary change. Sometimes it takes a moment of crisis to break unhealthy patterns established over decades. Financial ghosts don't bring gifts, but sometimes, if you're lucky, they bring something more valuable, the courage to demand respect and the wisdom to know when giving becomes enabling. Travis had learned that family isn't about financial transactions, but about mutual respect and support. And I had learned that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is say no. So, what about you? Have you ever had to stand up to family members who took you for granted? Or have you been in Travis's position, suddenly realizing you've been depending too much on someone's generosity? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please give it a like and subscribe to hear more real-life family dramas with lessons learned the hard way. Thank you for listening, and remember, true family is defined by respect, not by blood or money.